Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the show where two guys watch random movies and then talk about them. We're here for another mini episode, and with me, as always, is the Dominic Toretto to my Luke Hobbs, Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing all right. You've been watching more Fast and Furious.
Yes, I want, and they're starting to. I'm getting to the fun ones.
Awesome. You must be getting into like 5, 6, 7. I'm all right. Do we want to just hop right into it?
Yep, this is, as I said before, this is one of our mini episodes, What You Watching, where we just talk about what movies we're watching. So you go first this time.
All right. As we record this, we're 8 days into October, and I've been trying to do a horror movie a day for October, so I have a few of those on here.
Nice.
But I have some other stuff too that I watched before October. Get into it. On HBO Max, I watched the movie Good Boys. And I don't know if you know anything about this one.
Is it like the opposite of Bad Boys with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence?
Yes, exactly. It's it's the same story, only in the eyes of the through the eyes of the criminals.
I'd watch that.
No, this is about a couple of boys who they're in sixth grade, and they're starting to like girls, and they're really naive about all this kind of sex stuff and all this stuff, but then they want to go to this kissing party, and they end up losing their drone and going on adventures. And it could have been a really cute, funny movie because of all the naive jokes, like this sex doll that they find. They call it like their dad's CPR doll and stuff like this. Except for I liked all that stuff where they were naive about things, but then the way they talked was like fucking this and fucking that and shit and what just I was like, maybe I'm naive because I live in a small town, and the sixth graders that I know, my daughter's in sixth grade, they don't talk like that. It's just I don't know, like there was this, it was almost like a disconnect where it's like you're trying to show how naive they are with things, but then showing them really vulgar with other things, and it kind of clashed when
Mm-hmm.
they with that. So it's either go one or the other. I think is either just have them be vulgar or have them be completely naive. I don't feel like you could just kind of clash the two. It didn't work for me. Then it's been a while since I watched a Jack Nicholson movie, so getting back on that.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
on Amazon Prime, still a lot of them I can't find streaming anywhere or to rent and all that stuff. But I found a 1967 film on Amazon Prime called Hell's Angels on Wheels.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a fun low budget. Jack Nicholson is like this gas station attendant, and these Hell's Angels come in, and he's getting all mad at a customer and quits his job, and then he falls in with the Hell's Angels, and they kind of take him under their wings, and then he falls for the leader's girl, and and then there's a whole falling out at the end, and I don't know, it's just a low budget '60s motorcycle movie.
Yeah, so would this be during kind of his Roger Corman days?
I think around there. I don't know if this one was particular, but yeah, this was still in his low budget Corman phase. Then my next one we don't have to talk about too much because we talked about it before. But I hopped on Amazon Prime and watched The Angry Red Planet,
Nice.
and I think you had talked about that an episode or two back on What You Watching. So
Like the Bat Rat Spider Crab?
yeah, it was a fun '50s sci-fi.
Mm-hmm. Nice red filter everywhere.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing I didn't like about it was like just the filter would just made everything like you couldn't tell what was going on with some of it with that filter on there. But I mean, I understand the effect because it's on the Angry Red Planet, but it's still a fun '50s sci-fi movie. Then on Hulu, I watched that biopic Judy with what's her face,
Renee Zellweger.
Renee
Not,
Zellweger.
yeah.
Yes. And this is one of those biopics that's like, watch it for her performance. Otherwise, the story itself is just kind of the last months of Judy Garland, and it wasn't that super interesting, to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But Renee Zellweger, who was up for an Oscar nomination, was really good in it. So I watched Jurassic Park with Elsa, my 8-year-old. because
Nice.
last year sometime we tried watching it, and she got to the Jurassic Park or the Jurassic Park, the T-Rex scene
Nice.
with the cars, and she's like, "Daddy, I can't do this anymore, so I need to turn this off." And so we're okay. Well, we can turn it. I'm not going to force her to watch something like that.
Mhm.
Well, she came to me a week or two ago. She goes, "Dad, I want to try Jurassic Park again."
That's awesome.
So yeah, so she made it all the way through this time, and she enjoyed it. So, and of course, not much you have to say about it. Everybody knows 1993, Steven Spielberg. 1993 was a big year for him.
Bam! Dino DNA.
uh, then on HBO Max, I watched another movie called Harriet from last year. That was that one about Harriet Tubman in
Hmm.
the Underground Railroad, and it was pretty good. I really enjoyed this one. I remember learning about Harriet Tubman, Underground Railroad, and all that. I don't remember much about her. And watching this movie, I didn't realize that she supposedly got voices from God directing her and what to do,
Hmm.
and all this stuff. And so it was really weird and interesting to see this story, but like it was still amazing that this person like single-handedly freed like 70 slaves herself, and then led this military mission or whatever that freed a couple hundred more slaves. So just an amazing person.
So my question about that is, yeah, she was just an absolute incredible human being. Is that no? Was it? I feel like if I would make this type of movie, and because she had a lot of these sort of incredible things that she did, I would always feel it like it would be best framed like a thriller, almost a war movie, because a lot of it was sort of around that time, because she was literally being hunted down and trying to escape from slave owners.
Yeah, and it kind of was. There was a lot of tension in, hiding and all this stuff, because they did have scenes of her being hunted through the woods and all that stuff with the slaves and everything. So, yeah, got her Harrison Ford fugitive moment jumping off a bridge, and
Nice.
so I know his was off of a dam, but still, But no, yeah, it had a lot of that in it too. So I really liked this movie. Then I started October, and I started it off right with 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. This one I
Nice.
have on DVD, so I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. Classic. This one still holds up as a truly scary movie. This one will always be one of my favorites, hands down.
Agreed. And plus, I always thought the practical effects in this one were really cool, especially when sort of like Freddy peering through the wall still really
Yeah.
looks really good.
And then the girl who ends up on the ceiling, and then the blood just pours out of that bed. Just
Yeah, the blood bed.
and Robert Englund as Freddy is truly terrifying in this. He's slowly becomes a joke throughout the series, but in this one he really is just like a terrifying dream creature. Just
Yeah.
so highly recommend that, especially this month here in October. So then we had another movie night with the family, and we watched on HBO Max. We watched the 1938 version of The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is such a fun movie, and
And Olivia de Havilland. So yeah, she was
such a family friendly movie. Got Claude Rains as the bad guy. What's his name? Prince
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 Charming.
John. Yeah. So yeah, it's a family friendly, just kind of technicolor, fun adventure movie. It's just like I said, it's just a lot of fun, is what it
Yep.
is.
Just a good old fashioned swashbuckler.
Yeah. So another one I recommend. That's streaming on HBO Max. Then back to the horror. I watched a movie from 1982. I found this one on YouTube called Xtro. XTRO.
Oh, I think I've heard of this one.
This is one of the most bizarre horror movies you'll see. It was actually produced, I believe, by Robert Shea, who produced Nightmare on Elm Street 2 years
Oh,
later. This dad and his son playing out in the backyard. The dad gets abducted by aliens, and then it's like 25 years later, an alien comes back and impregnates some lady, and then you get a scene where you watch her give birth to a full-grown man. just disturbing. And then there's some weird like stuff going on with like a clown in this kid's room that turns into like a real life midget clown, and there's a wolf in the house, and I'm not even sure what's happening in the movie, but it's so bizarre. This is the second time I've seen this one, and I still don't even know what the hell was going on, but it's just so bizarre. Like you can't look away. So I don't even know what to say about that one. I don't know if it's for everyone. The next one I watched was on Amazon Prime. I watched a 1983 Italian giallo film called A Blade in the Dark. And this one was actually kind of a cool little film because, it's a giallo. So it's, kind of a mystery horror where you trying to figure out who the killer is. And it's this guy who is renting a villa and he's writing a score for a horror movie. So like that kind of gets incorporated into the movie itself, and it's really kind of cool. And these women start dying in like the houses next to him and everything, and he's trying to figure out like what's going on. So
now, is this like Lucio Fulci, or is this
yes, I believe it was a Fulci movie.
Yeah, he did a ton.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to seek out more because I like these giallo films. They're kind of fun, and this was a good one from 1983. Like I said, on Amazon Prime, it's one I'd recommend.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with giallo, but I do know that I have like a Blood and Black Lace waiting on my DVR. That's kind of considered the first one, directed by Mario Bava.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about the giallo films, and I think this one is because I think I think one of the signifiers of it being a giallo film is the fact that it's kind of a mystery. You don't know who the killer is. I think that's one of the things about giallo. I don't know what all the classifications are, but it'd be interesting to get more into those a little bit. And then I watched another one with my daughter, and this one actually gave her nightmares, so I think I need to hold off on the horror movies with her for a little bit. On IMDb TV, which you can watch through Amazon Prime, 1990s Arachnophobia. I have seen this movie 100 times because I am arachnophobic, so this is like truly one of the scariest movies ever for me.
Don't forget John Goodman.
Yes, John Goodman is great as he is in everything. He's just wonderful in this film as the exterminator, who just seems clueless.
But at the same time, he's like, yeah, whatever. He's just like, it's just a regular job to him,
Yeah. We got killer spiders. Yeah, okay, I'll go in. I'll get rid of them. It's all right. Oh, but no, arachnophobia. If you like scary movies and you hate spiders, but you like to be scared, this is the best spider movie.
And it does have a real element of comedy to it as well.
It does, and John Goodman provides a lot of that. But yeah, there is a little bit more too. But it also is, it really is probably the best spider movie. Because the spiders are all, I don't know if they used real spiders. I wonder if they did and just filled this house with them at the end. But that'd be interesting to look into the production of that.
And that was Jeff Daniels was the star, right?
Yes. So another high recommend.
And if I remember correctly, that one was actually directed by Frank Marshall, who's better known as sort of the longtime editor who works with Steven Spielberg on everything.
Yeah, because I think this was a Steven Spielberg Presents kind of movie. And then one last one, because there were two other horror movies, but one we'll talk about in our main show, and one we're going to talk about just as a Halloween special. But the last one I watched then was on Amazon Prime. This was a first time watch for me, 1989's Leviathan. And it's kind of like a horror version of The Abyss. You got this group of miners down at the bottom of the ocean, and they run across this ship and they get infected by some disease in there, and then this creature forms, kills everybody and trying to get off the ship. It's got a fun cast. It's Peter Weller is the lead, and then you've got Ernie Hudson was in there, and Michael Carmine, Hector Elizondo, and Daniel Stern. So it was a really interesting cast, and I really liked it. The effects were done by Stan Winston, and they were pretty cool. So yeah, this is one I can't believe I never watched when I was a kid, because I always remembered the cover of like the I think it was like a cover of one of them in the diver suit, like trying to swim up the
Hmm.
cover, and I really enjoyed this one. This was kind of fun. Like I said, the creature effects were pretty cool in this one too. So
Yeah, what was it? But there seemed like there was like a bunch of sort of quote unquote deep sea movies in that time. This was
yeah,
like
there was
this Abyss and like Deep Star 6 or
yeah
something.
yeah because the Abyss was like 1990 or 91 or something like that. This was 1989. So yeah, all around the same time they had this phase of deep sea divers.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's what I watched. A lot of them that I would really recommend, and most of those are streaming somewhere. So check them out.
Awesome. All right, now I've got how many was that on your list? What number? I
Like
always pick
12
my
movies,
12. Okay, I got you. I got you this time. I got 16. So
and that's not counting. Well, obviously that's not counting the ones we'll do for our main show either. So
yes, yes. All right. So far, first one I had was Barbarella, sort of the weird
that's so bizarre.
of the 61s. Apparently, it's based off of like a French comic book, which I was unaware of. So
Yeah, and then Duran Duran named their band after it, and they even have a song called Electric Barbarella
nice.
because the bad guy is Durand Durand,
I was wondering if, yeah, I was gonna say I thought I
and
made the connection.
and that actually is where they got the name for their band. They just dropped the D at the end of it.
Hmm. Next was the 7 Year Itch, which is sort of one of the big Marilyn Monroe films where she plays kind of like the girl upstairs to like this guy who's kind of working by himself, overworked middle-aged man. It's definitely most of it takes place in like a single kind of building. It's definitely one of those movies that you can tell was based on a play.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a classic for a
Hmm.
reason.
Got that white dress.
Yep. Worth watching alone just for that scene, so you know where that reference comes from. Because I mean,
Hmm.
another one that The Simpsons have done, and like everyone else.
Everyone has done it.
What was it? Willem Dafoe in that Snickers commercial.
Something like that. I forgot about that commercial. Then I watched a movie from the late 1970s about like a young man who kind of leaves his home, goes on an incredible adventure, starring Mark Hamill
Oh,
and
really?
Corvette Summer.
Oh, I was gonna say the Guyver.
Yes, the Guyver. No, that was 90s.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
No, yeah, Corvette Summer was like the movie he made that came out right after Star Wars, and that's the only reason anyone remembers it. And basically, he plays kind of a high school kid who spent his entire summer building like this awesome Corvette, takes it out for a ride one time, gets stolen, ends up in Vegas, and he has to track it down and like spend his summer in Vegas looking for it.
Didn't he have an accident or something in this movie that affected the filming for like Empire or something like that?
Maybe, I don't know, but I do know that it also had like a very very young Annie Potts, and she was great.
Annie Potts is always great.
Hmm.
I um was this a good one?
It's okay. I mean, it's more of a curiosity than anything else.
Yeah, see, like Mark Hamill's other like I mean, you've got Star Wars and he'll always be great as Luke Skywalker. Um Even in the new movies, I think he's awesome as Luke Skywalker, but like
Mhm.
his other live action movies just never hit big. I watched The Guyver a few times, but his voice work is where he really
Oh,
shines.
absolutely. That's definitely where he shines extremely well. And then I went old school and watched Plan 9 from Outer Space
Nice.
just on its own. So,
I've
all
I've
that
done the
great.
same before.
This man was murdered and somebody's responsible. And then just, how the cops there is like, I think like one of the cops like scratches his head with his gun, stuff like that. And
There
just, a,
is
there's a
there's
lot
one
of
scene I
destruction in the
remember.
movie.
There's one scene I remember that always stuck out to me when the first time I watched it, and it's where they're carrying a body through like a cemetery or something like that, and I don't remember if they get scared by something or if they need to get rid of the body because they got spooked or something, and the guy's reaction was really delayed, and he's like just and then like 3 seconds later he throws the body, and then and then it cuts away. It's just like, yeah, it just really is like this is a good one to watch in tandem with Ed Wood.
Yeah, great with friends, and Yeah, as to watch it as like a double feature with Ed Wood, I think is a great way to do it because then you can really because so much of Ed Wood is about kind of the production of this film and how whether or not it was any good, you can still appreciate. I guess he was at least according to the film, he was passionate, and passion can count for a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Next, I watched Starship Troopers. I'd never seen that before.
Well, that's a good one. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I'm generally a Paul Verhoeven fan.
Yeah, and it also has Doogie Howser Space Nazi by the end. So,
This is one I need to revisit to, because I watched it when it came out and I was in early in college,
hmm
and I don't know if I got all of the satire to it or whatever.
yeah, I
But
almost think the satire, at least for me, didn't work super well because almost like the combats or the action scenes were almost too well filmed
yeah,
because they were too fun to watch, so that it didn't quite work.
okay, yeah.
At least in
I
my opinion.
I think like more recent Verhoeven films, I'm not quite as big of a fan of. I like his earlier stuff with like RoboCop
hmm
and Total Recall and all that, because he was Total Recall, right?
Yes.
Yes. So, and I think this was one of the last of his good films.
hmm But yeah, good time and kind of cliche. But I guess the interesting thing about that is that it's meant to be more of a satire because he absolutely hated the source of the book. And I read the book when I was like 13, 14. I was like, man, this is pretty great. This is cool. They've got like, because in the book, it's pretty much like Space Marines, like you'd imagine something like a StarCraft or like Warhammer or anything.
Yeah.
But then it's just like, oh, wait a minute. It's also talking about how, this whole military thing is great.
Yeah, he likes to take the piss out of things is what he likes
Mhm.
to do. It's kind of like showing how violent movies are by making RoboCop the most uber violent movie ever.
But then in some case, that's also super fun.
Yeah, I know, and that's the ironic part is like the violence is actually like fun, which kind of like takes away from his message of how violent movies are getting, because then you're just like
Mhm.
going, "Oh yeah, that was great!" Like when his face melts off, and
Yeah. Then I watched She from 1960 something. And this was with Ursula Andress, who was the first Bond girl.
yep,
And
I know
basically,
that bikini shot.
yes, everyone does. And basically, it's about a couple guys going on an adventure. It's based off of Merle, not a Merle Haggard, H.R. The point is, the guy who wrote like King Solomon's Mine, sort of Alan Quartermain,
Oh, okay.
that guy who was a big, and it's like, oh, so this is where Indiana Jones comes from. I get it now.
Oh yeah,
Type
yeah.
of movie. Yeah, it was fun. And then, there's even a part where you thought someone was more immortal and then they did something wrong and maybe they made a poor choice. So then they aged really fast.
Oh, crazy. That sounds like an interesting movie to watch.
It's it's fun. There's like a 1930s version and 1960s version.
Okay.
Then I watched A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court starring Bing Crosby.
Nice.
One of those kind of lesser musicals, but still fun. Still a fun story about a modern man gets knocked on the head, then ends up traveling back in time to King Arthur's time, and all he has with him is like a book that says like how to repair everything. So he uses his modern knowledge to try and become a wizard in King Arthur's court and try and help improve people's lives.
Awesome.
Next, I watched Sex Madness, about how premarital sex is bad. Think of it in the same vein, not quite as crazy, but in the same vein as like Reefer Madness.
Okay, I was just gonna ask: is it like a sequel to Reefer Madness? You get high and then you get the sex madness.
Maybe not quite as fun, not quite as crazy and insane, but it was okay. And then I watched Fast Five, aka the one where The Rock shows up.
Nice.
It's like,
This is
yes,
this is where
finally.
this is where they get real good.
Yeah, that is where they get good. Why do they have to be 5 movies in?
I still like the first one, the Point
Mhm.
Break remake.
Where they're still like TV VHS combos.
Yeah, I know. I love that. That's like the joke of the series is like they started off stealing DVD, yeah, TV or was like DVD VHS combos, and then by the eighth and ninth movies, they're superheroes.
They're superheroes with cars.
Yeah.
There's like a scene in the sixth one, like, don't let them get into cars.
They'll never be stopped then.
Yes, so it's great, great action, and I mean, what can you say? It's big, it's silly, it's over the top, but it just kind of embraces it and it's like, and it just kind of goes with it, goes for the pure spectacle, and it works.
Yep.
Next, I watched CC and Company, starring pantyhose enthusiast and former football player Joe Namath,
All right.
where he plays like a mechanic who gets bored at his job, then joins a motorcycle gang and has goofy adventures.
Wow. I don't even know this film.
It's from 1970. It's a movie.
So you watched Joe Namath be a biker. I watched Jack Nicholson be a biker.
Yeah. And then I watched Daughters of. Well, before I go into the next few, I have a Criterion Channel subscription. It's one of my favorite streaming services. They're always going to kind of more art house style, but also they're willing to find just weird stuff you've never heard of.
Yeah.
So they had like for October they had this. They've got a big collection of just like horror movies from the 1970s,
Oh, cool.
and they cover like a ton. It's like I don't know, like at least 20 movies going from 1970 to 1979. It's like okay, I'm just gonna watch all of these because a lot of them are only like 90 minutes. So then it's a fun group of these. So I watched some of these in a row, and here they are, starting with Daughters of Darkness, and it is about kind of like a young couple. They're sort of on their honeymoon. Then they meet a mysterious older lady thinking like Venice or something. And this older lady and her servant may or may not be a vampire. So hoo hoo.
Ooh, spooky.
Then I watched Trog. Trog is the last movie that Joan Crawford was ever in.
That sounds like a classy one to end on.
Yes, and it's people exploring in a cave. Then they find like this missing link sort of guy. He's like a goofy costume. Then of course they try and tame him. Turns out he's nice. Then of course he goes crazy and starts killing people in England.
That'd be interesting to like just go through like a bunch of classic actors and watch all of their final movies.
Some of them would be amazing. Some of them not so much.
You, you have that one. You've got like Raul Julia and Street Fighter.
Yeah.
There's some interesting final films.
hmm Then there's let's see, Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
I've heard
That
of
one
that
has
one.
That one's had a bit more of a cult following to it, and it uses a lot of kind of weird, eerie music and visuals. It's super low budget. Basically, a group of people move to the country, and Jessica, her boyfriend, and then a couple of other friends, and then they move to like the country, with a nice lake out back, and then
Are they moving
it's
to
one
the
of the things.
country? Going to eat a lot of peaches?
Yes, yes, just like that. Except in this one, you're never quite sure like how much of it is real and how much of it is in Jessica's head. So it's been more ambiguous of like, is she actually seeing a ghost or is she just like having a nervous breakdown?
Cool.
And then I watched The Vampire Lovers. This was a Hammer horror, so late period Hammer horror film, and this one was based off of Carmilla, which is about this time it's a lady vampire.
Nice. Hammer horror is something I want to get more into. I don't know if I've really watched any Hammer horror, and I know that Christopher Lee was big and like a big actor in that in like the '60s.
Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were kind of their two big mainstays.
Yeah, because I think that their later films in Hammer weren't as well revered, but like people love the early '60s, '70s Hammer films, and I'd like to get more into those.
If you're gonna start, I mean, you got to start with like Horror of Dracula, which is the first one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hunt some of these down.
hmm I think and throughout this sort of series, he played Dracula like Christopher Lee played Dracula like 12 times or something.
Yeah, he's probably played Dracula more more than about anybody.
That's true. And later in life, when you would like do stuff or interview him, like people like his handler or the person, his agent or whatever, would tell you, don't ask about Dracula. Anyway, then I watched The Nightcomers, which is works as a prequel to Turn of the Screw, which is sort of the classic horror ghost story novella by Henry James. That's sort of, two kids and the governess, spooky stuff starts happening sort of thing in a country mansion.
Things always happen in country mansions.
Yeah, it's well, this is where that came from. And Nightcomers is interesting because it has Marlon Brando as sort of this groundskeeper working at this mansion with these two kids. And it starts out pretty, innocent and things slowly being like, oh. And it's fun because it puts like a different spin, makes you rethink the turn of the screw, like you would rethink something else after this. There's an interesting prequel, kind of like how what Maleficent did for something like Sleeping Beauty.
Cool.
Then I watched Our Modern Maidens, which was Joan Crawford very earlier in her career in 1929. This is her last silent film, kind of a fun melodramatic film where like she starts sort of romancing this diplomat in order to get her fiance a job, and then of course things fall in love, blah blah blah. Someone else falls in love with their fiance, blah blah blah. Lots of fun, kind of romantic melodrama. And lastly, I watched Fast and Furious 6, so the one with the tank.
Yes.
And then just the part where like, where Letty's like kind of gets flung because of the tank, and then Dom like jumps out of this car to go save her is like, I'm starting to think these movies are kind of silly.
Yeah, well, because this one didn't have yet. Is it 7 that has them on the ice, and the Rock is redirecting like torpedoes on the ice, and
Yeah, it's like 7 or 8 as a submarine, but then
yeah, yes,
because 7 is the one where they drive from like building to building in Dubai or something.
yeah, which is utterly ridiculous and awesome.
But yes, it just got. Man, I'm looking forward to 9. I know it was delayed till next year, but I'm looking forward to it. It says apparently they're going to go to space.
That's great. We're getting space cars.
I just want to see it like a space Charger, a space Dodge Charger.
I want it to be like those buggies they use on the moon.
There you go, a
Right.
moon buggy race.
Little moon buggies.
I want the Rock to like move the moon by punching it or something.
That'd be amazing, and I'd totally go for it.
Oh yeah, I'd be all in.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to number 9 also.
Yeah, so that's what I got, and it's just, I mean, I get it now. It took me a while, but I get it now.
The Fast and Furious.
Yeah, they're silly. They're superheroes with cars, but occasionally street race.
Yeah,
I
you
do like
don't go in for like the seriousness of it.
Yeah, but I do like how it reminds me of the Adam West Batman. The fact that at least Vin Diesel takes it seriously. This is kind of, he seems like he's going for Oscar gold every time.
Yeah,
And I appreciate that because it kind of helps you buy into it because like, no, I know this is silly, but this is serious stuff.
yeah, it's really, yeah, it's really weird, like, because he is so intense and like even in real life very intense about these movies.
And like I can appreciate that. He knows that this is probably the best thing he's ever gonna do. So
Yeah, so good stuff. Hopefully a lot of recommendations for people.
yes. And what do you think you're gonna watch next? Anything? What you got next in the pile?
I actually started watching it before our podcast, and I haven't finished yet. I'm going to finish it when we're done recording tonight. An Australian movie called Body Melt.
This is about
As
is it like a patty melt that turns into a human?
yes, indeed. Uh, I don't know. So far, it's pretty bizarre. Yeah, that's my day 8 horror for this month. So, what about you? What's on the docket?
Well, I've been because they aren't really streaming anywhere that I have. I've got Furious 7 next. I got that. I got that from my local library. So, gonna keep on with the silliness and really enjoy it. And
There you go.
it's about my family.
Family. All right. Well, that's what we've been watching. Let us know what you guys have been watching, and click the like button and all that jazz. Comment below. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at AwesomeKM.
And I'm at Noah_Saturn. That is spelled Satern.
And we're on Instagram at We Don't Know What to Watch. And until next time, keep watching.
Keep watching and make sure to drive a tank and some cars and stuff.
You'll turn into a superhero.
Exactly.